Welcome to Decoding Leadership, where we break down the elements of humane and effective leadership. I'm your host, Jade Rubick. Today's topic is about piles. Piles. What a weird topic. I'd like to talk about the concept of piles because it's something I did not notice for many of the earliest years I was an engineering manager. And yet, it was something I became kind of sensitized to as a topic. And once I did, it really helped me notice a lot of things that I never noticed before. My mind was opened to the idea of piles when I read the book, The Principles of Product Development Flow. It's a wonderful book. It blew my mind in many different ways, but it's also a very hard book. And just as an aside, it's one that I recommend quite a lot. What I was sensitized to was that work accumulates in piles everywhere. Once I read the book, I saw it all over the place. I saw bugs piling up. I saw feature requests. I saw engineering work that was sitting in pull requests waiting to be reviewed. I saw conversations that were waiting for responses in email, in chat. I saw piles of work that were needing to be quality checked. I saw proposals that people were writing that were waiting for review. All of these were like different forms of piles. And so if you start to see it that way, you see all of these things that are like waiting or piling up. So let me give you an example of one of these things. One is bugs. The way bugs are usually handled on engineering teams is that they're recorded in a system like Jira, and they each get a number, and you just file them away. If you work on them, you close them out. And if you get new information on them, you add to it. And so they're treated like this library of all the problems that anybody has ever had with your software. And so what you end up with is an ever increasing list of bugs. It's a huge pile of work. And the problem with that is you don't actually intend to do all that work. You're actually kind of lying. It's like you're recording it for some reason, but you're not actually intending to work on it. So you end up with this long list of bugs that you have to manage, and it's growing and growing. You may have 100 bugs, you may have 1,000 bugs, you may have 5,000 bugs, and you're managing these artifacts that aren't actually translating into anything that you're going to do anything with. And it feels good because you have this great library of bugs, but just managing that list of bugs is a lot of work. You prioritize them, you may defer them, you may just throw them in a bucket of junk, but what value are they actually producing? To me, it seems a lot more valuable that you use those bugs to communicate, that you say you're not going to do anything with it. You close them out. If you search for them or they come up again, they're still there, they're closed out, but you've identified your intention by closing it and saying you're not going to fix it, or you don't plan to fix it right now. You can always change your mind. Similarly, if you have feature requests always coming in, if you're not actually processing those, why do you even have that list of feature requests? I find that what happens when you try to minimize all of your piles everywhere is that you're actually optimizing for flow. You're trying to optimize so that things move through your system very, very smoothly. And your piles actually points out where things are piling up and where they're not moving smoothly. And so if you look at the world as trying to minimize all your piles everywhere, that gives you this line through all of the work that's happening of like how to get things moving more smoothly. And so just as a thought experiment, when you think back to extreme programming and the way that they advocated working where you sat down with your customers, developed the software, shipped it, and showed it to them immediately, where you were actually doing the work together with your customer. And think of just like how few piles there are in that way of working. It is, in some ways, almost like an idealized way to work. Yes, there's problems with it and whatever, but it's an interesting thought experiment to think about that versus okay, you get a feature request that comes in, prioritize all your feature requests. You have like all these chunks of work that you queue up, and then the engineers work off of those in these queues of tickets, and then those tickets get done, and then you intersperse the bugs, and then there's all of these very like big piles that you're creating along the way. I'm not saying that that's necessarily a terrible way to work, although I do think the ticket-based form of work is not really a great way of working for most engineering teams. But I'm just saying, pay attention to your piles.